Hi, gorgeous. So my new obsession is just making this bag in every color combination I could possibly think of. It's pretty easy. It's just a little bit time consuming, but it's honestly so worth it. I mean, look how cute this is. To start off, I am using a 5mm crochet hook and a weighted 4 yarn, and I'm just gonna make a slip knot. Insert my hook, and I'm going to chain 38 plus 1 for my turning chain. Now you're going to look for the back loops of those chains that you did. I'm just showing you here how to find them. Just flip your chain over and you're going to insert your hook in the second back loop from the chain, and you're going to do a single crochet. And you're going to continue to do back loop single crochets all the way to the end. The back loops can be a little tight to get your crochet hook into, so just make sure that when you're making your first initial chain that you are making them a bit looser so that you're not having the problem that I'm having right here, where you're having to fight with the loop to get through. Once you have reached the end of your row, you are going to chain 1, turn your work, and you're gonna once again do back loop only single crochet. So you can see here where I'm gonna insert my hook is in the back loop, so the furthest bar in that V stitch away from me. Insert your hook and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. That's your single crochet. You're gonna do that all the way across, and you can see here I'm just marking for you visually where you're going to want to put a stitch marker if that is something that you like to do, because we are going to do a thermal stitch, and if you've never done it before, it can be a little bit confusing to kind of get the hang of, but I promise once you do, it's super easy to manage. And it's my favorite stitch to do when making a bag because it makes your stitches a lot tighter together and just makes the bag a little bit more sturdy and stronger. Okay, so I've tried to slow this down for you guys to see a bit better how and what I'm doing. So basically you get to the end of that previous row, chain 1, turn your work. Now to do the thermal stitch, you're going to insert your hook into the back loop of that first stitch, and you're going to continue going down into the back bar of the row you did previously. So that's why it's important to make sure you're doing back loop only, because it creates these 2 bars for you to insert your hook. So I'm going to show you again here. You're going to insert your hook into the back loop of the next stitch you're going to do. And like I said, you might want to use a stitch marker here because it's a little bit confusing when you're first getting into it, but you're inserting your hook into the back loop of the stitch you would normally and the stitch from the row previously. Then you're just pulling up a loop and doing a single crochet. Continue this along the whole row. You are going to continue making the thermal stitch for 35 rows. This can get a little confusing at the end just because the thermal stitch does make your project a little bit shorter because you're kind of working like a half row at a time. If that's just doubly confusing you, ignore what I'm saying here. Just do 35 rows of the thermal stitch and then do that a second time to make 2 full panels. Okay, this is my attempt at trying to visually show you what I mean and how to explain which sides of the panels are going to go inwards and touch each other and which sides will face outwards and you'll be able to see on the bag. So I'm showing you here. On either side of the panel, there's like a little indent, okay? So this is the row that we started our back loops, and the reason we're doing an odd number is so that one side of the panel looks completely flat. So that's kind of how you'll know if you lose track of counting your rows. That's how you'll know if you want to continue or if you need to stop there. Is one side of that panel should be completely flat, and the other side you should be able to see these two little divots on either side of the width of the panel. Those are the inside of the bag, so those are going to face each other when we sew the seams together. I hope that was helpful. Okay, now that I have sufficiently confused you, I am so sorry guys. If that last clip was not helpful, just ignore it. Just do your 35 rows, you'll be good to go. We are now going to make the sides of the bag and the bottom that hold it together. So we are going to pull up a loop and we are going to chain the amount that are both sides of the bag plus the bottom. So remember, we chained 38 for the panels and we did 35 rows. However, on the flat side of the row that is going to face us, there will be 18 rows. So we're going to chain 18 plus 38 plus 18 for both sides plus the bottom. You might want to pause on that last clip I just had. It outlines what we're going to do in this third row. So we're going to do 2 of our thermal stitch single crochets. We're going to chain 4, skip 3 stitches and insert our hook into the 4th with a thermal stitch. And then we're just going to continue doing our thermal stitch single crochets until we have 6 stitches left. Then we're going to do the same thing but backwards. So we're going to do chain 4, skip 3, and then 2 final thermal stitch single crochets to complete our row. This is just going to give us more room when we put our bag together. Those chain links that make up the handle are going to be hard to get through if we don't give them a little bit of extra room. Once we have finished that third row, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work, and then we're going to continue doing our thermal stitches all along. And when we reach that chain 4, we're actually just going to insert our hook and do single crochets around those chains. So we're going to do 3 single crochets around those chains. I know it's a little bit confusing because we chained 4, but we also only skipped 3 stitches. So we just want to make sure we're not adding or losing any stitches when we're going from row 3 to row 4. So we're just going to do 3 single crochets and then insert our hook into the back loop of that 4th that we attached to the strap previously. Our row 5 is going to be quite similar. So we're going to do our thermal stitches, and when we get to those single crochets that we did from the previous row, we're just going to do back loop only single crochets. So you kind of see here, we're almost restarting that thermal stitch pattern. So we need to do a back loop only in order to then bring ourselves in the next row to be able to do that thermal stitch by having the 2 back bars. Your 6th row is your final row, and you have successfully navigated that mind game I put you through. I apologize, but it will make sense in the end, I promise. Just do 74 thermal stitch single crochet. Okay, now for the most fun you're ever gonna have. We are going to basically sew together the seams and put our bag together. So you're gonna see 18 of these little knobs on the side of your panels. Count 18 on the strap and then stitch mark that together. 38 on the bottom, stitch that together on both ends, and then another 18 on the side. Sew it together however you prefer. I just weaved through one side out the other, back through. Do that for both panels until you basically have your bottom section of your bag. All right, once you have that, now we are going to start working on the chain links. These are so cool to make, and once you start putting them together and seeing the bag come together, it's pretty freaking cool. So what we're going to do is we are going to pull up a slip stitch and we're going to chain 20 plus 1. Then you are going to insert your hook into the back loop of that first chain we did. You're going to be a complete expert at this because of that thermal stitch that we've done. So honestly, don't even worry about this. Then you're just going to pull up a single crochet. Then what you're going to do, again in the back loops only, is single crochet around the 20 stitches. So you're just going to have to twist the chains a little bit. You'll see the front side and the back side. Again, you are a genius at this because of all of the thermal stitches we did. But you're just going to insert your hook, pull up a loop, and do a single crochet in the back loop around these chain 20 that you did. Again, from the beginning, maybe make your chains a little bit looser so you're not struggling as much as I am trying to get the crochet hook into the back loop. I like to have tight stitches, but that can also make my life an absolute misery when I'm trying to do these back loops on the initial chain stitch. Don't be like me. Once you have come to the end here, you're going to want to make sure that your tail is facing downwards. And you're going to insert your hook into that first single crochet stitch and just do single crochets around in a circle. You're going to want to do this until you have about 8 rows of single crochet. You're not doing anything fancy. You don't need to turn in any direction. Just do single crochets around and around until you get 8 rows. Your final single crochet should be just before where that tail is so that you don't have any double ups or extra or anything like that. That's just a good gauge of where to know where to stop, if that makes sense, right before where that tail is. So make sure the tail is facing downwards towards you. Once you've completed 8 rows, you're basically going to take the first chain row that you've done and fold it inward to meet the final 8th row. So you'll see here, I'm pushing it inward. I'm not folding it outward. You want your first chain row and your final 8th row of single crochets to meet and make like a little donut. Then you're just going to measure out enough yarn to go around and you're just going to seam them together. So however you like to do that, I'm going to show you here. Basically, I just weave them in and out opposite ends and you're just going to pull those together so that they attach and make a little donut. Something I did want to mention as well is here would be a good place if you want to stuff your little chain links. I decided not to do that here just because I felt like the yarn I was using was tight enough that I didn't need anything to fill the little chain links. But if you wanted to, just insert some stuffing right now before you seam it together. Okay, once you've done that and seamed the edges together, you're just going to want to push where that seam is into the inside middle of our little donut. So you'll see here, I'm just working along the edges to kind of push the seam into the middle, just so that you can't really see it and it looks cleaner on the outside. Then just take your yarn and snip off, weave in that final end into your little donut, and you have your first chain link. So we have our first little chain link done, and now we are going to start actually attaching it to the bag and making our strap. So to begin, we're going to take a new piece of yarn, chain 20 plus 1, and what we're going to do this time is a little bit different. This time what we're going to do is feed the end through that hole that we made, as well as that first chain link that we made. And we're going to attach, as we did previously, to the back loop and do a single crochet. We're going to be doing the exact same pattern all the way through, except we're just going to be doing it through another chain link. So it's just going to be feeding through your rows through these holes that we made. This is why we wanted to give ourselves extra room on the sides of the bag, because it would be really hard to pass 8 rows of these single crochets that we're doing through a tiny little hole. So we just gave ourselves some extra space to do that. Just make sure at the end of each chain link, you are pushing that seam into the middle on the inside of the little link. That way you can't really see it and the outsides look nice and smooth and rounded. Then you are just going to make as many links as you want. I think for this project I did about 9 just because I wanted to get this tutorial up. But if you wanted to make the strap longer, you could do more. If you wanted to make it shorter, you could do less. It's really up to you now how many links you want to add to your bag. And there we freaking have it. I know at the beginning I said this was easy, it was just time consuming. I hope that is the case for you. If you're a beginner, this is probably a little bit more challenging. If you are a seasoned crocheter, then you probably get the gist of what these stitches are, and it just takes some time to build it out. But honestly, I think it's so worth it. I mean, it's honestly like the cutest freaking bag I've ever seen. I'm gonna make it in every color combination I can think of. Thank you so much for watching. If there are any other tutorials or things that you want to see, please let me know. I'd be happy to show you and add my little zest and spice to it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.